Farmer Tom here. Welcome to the Farmer Tomcast. Today on our ongoing series, Heroes of the Grain, we have Estabon, Portland, Oregon native and Cannabis Advocate. You want to tell me about your cannabis story, how you got started where you grew up?
Yeah, sure.
All that kind of stuff?
Sure. Well, I'd have to say probably that my first exposure to cannabis was when I was 14, freshman in high school, and I was down at a junior lady already, big feather in my hat to be dating a junior woman who was living off campus in her own apartment.
Wow.
So I'm there, and somebody I'd gone to grade school with was in the back room, and when I was going back to get rid of the beer I was drinking as a freshman and feeling pretty hot, they're in the back room, and I could smell that first familiar smell,
Right.
And he offers me some, and, he'd just been a classmate through grade school. I didn't know anything about it. Didn't know anybody. Didn't know really anything about it. I was just.
What year was this?
1964.
Okay.
Yeah. So I said thanks, but no thanks. And so then I went through high school, being a juicer and a jock and all that stuff. But by the time I went away from home to college, then out in Forest Grove at Pacific, and I went looking for those long hairs that thought they might know something about it, because I thought I was ready to make that decision, and it seemed like that was the next thing to do. So that was my first exposure to it, and fortunately I met people who had some economic background. They were all, parents had put them there in private college and paid for everything, so they had already developed connections for some of the better weed around, because some were from California, some from Hawaii, some from New York,
Oh, nice. And this was what year?
That was 68.
68,
yeah.
Okay. So you're already seeing cannabis in 68
right.
From California. Was it Mexican brickweed?
Oh,
or
yeah.
Was there any, had you seen any green bud yet? Or
No, and it subsequently, within a couple of years after that, then it was some Thai and some Colombian, relative to that, I started realizing the wealth of the whole cannabis thing, because it was so underground still. I mean, all the festivals and stuff during the 60s, early 70s, when the war on drugs had not even started yet, it was really everywhere among all the hip people and all the young people. And so there was really no stigma on it at the time. I mean, LSD was still legal at that point.
Wow,
it hadn't been made illegal and stuff. But at one point, maybe as early as 70 or early 70s, we started getting, in one shipment, we started getting number 2, like Alberta peaches tins come in, number 2 tins.
Okay.
Without labels, but they were sealed metal cans.
Okay.
And they had a quarter pound per can in them. And it was Colombian weed, some of the dankest, darkest, resinous stuff that I've ever seen, ever had. And so we had so much of it over a period of time, and it was heavily seeded, but big fat bomber seeds. So I kept saving the seeds, just thinking,
one day.
Yeah. Well, a real good friend of mine, an older mentor that was one of my real early connections with a pot, he knew growers in Hawaii. So I gave him an ounce of those seeds when he was going to go over for his summer vacation. And when he came back, he told me the story about the eyes lighting up with the growers and stuff when he handed in this bag of seeds. And they told him that ounce of seeds was probably worth about $1,000 then over in Hawaii to the growers.
So this was in the early 70s?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then a friend of mine brought some Puna butter.
Sure.
It's called Puna butter from Hawaii back. And so that was my one of my first exposures then to cannabis grown somewhere other than North America. But, we had the Mexican before that, and then the Colombian from South America, and then Thai. The Thai stick was in the early 70s, and, after we'd gotten, and we were fortunate because we got bush that was from named provinces, Agrarian, Oaxacan, Michoacan, these different provinces. The weed was specifically for that, from that province, whatever it was named, and it was definitely, each one was different.
Oh yeah, yeah,
you know,
okay.
The colors and everything,
How they process it, the whole.
Yeah, and then getting, big giant colas, but a lot of seed. Always had a lot of seed.
Yeah.
In fact, I still got seed, it's probably 50 years old now.
Wow.
It's just been stored in that dark drawer and stuff, but I don't think it'd be viable now. I wouldn't know, without sprouting something.
There's some techniques out there, like a little sandpaper on them, and there's some different techniques out there to help them, these older seeds, get a sprout. Maybe we can try that.
For sure, for fun.
Yeah. So you're into the 70s. What happened during the 70s?
Coke.
Coke?
Yeah. That came in, and by the 80s when disco and everybody, sorting and stuff, that was kind of a deterrent. I didn't go there, except on the fringes. Knew people that did, because that late 60s and early 70s things was mescaline, LSD, all these other pharmaceutical or chemically manufactured stuff that was not part of the scene at all when I first started being around pot, in college and stuff. It was just strictly that, and we were just a small little segment of the population in the college, that got high. But then throughout the 70s, then all this other stuff started coming around and stuff, and just saw a lot of it being real destructive in a lot of people's lives and stuff.
Yeah.
So that just kind of, but I tried, when somebody come up to me a lot of times, I had that one story where I started a job in a body and fender business, and within the first hour of being there, new on the job, one of the other mechanics comes to me with a little bit of coffee and tells me, oh yeah, the owner, he's got some really good LSD, you want to try some? And I'm, no, I don't think so.
My first day at work.
No, right. And he goes, oh no, that's okay. It's not that strong. It's
just one sugar. It's just one sugar cube, not three.
And I think it was a window pane or something. I take it and, a couple ounces of coffee, and within 45 minutes or something, I'm rushing on this, and we're sanding some guy's old truck that we're going to do a restoration on, and the paint's starting to melt together.
Yeah.
So
not strong at all.
Walk up to the front desk to the guy, and, I won't even use his name, but similar to a magician. He is just this jovial, hopping and bopping to the public all the time, and stuff, And I go up and I go, hey man, the mechanic turned me on to some of your LSD, and I think I'm too high to continue to work. Good, isn't it? He said. Because I thought I was going to lose my job because I couldn't work. I was going, oh well, he says, go on home and enjoy it. And he says, come back tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow.
All right.
So that was the attitude back then about everything, basically, if you were in those circles, because everybody was trying everything. But cannabis just seemed to be the one that was organic, what it did for and with my head, and then the disposition of the people that I was around developed a lot of trust when it became more sketchy as far as being in possession of it and all that stuff with the laws and everything, So it just became a real tight-knit group of people that trusted each other for a place and a safe environment to enjoy cannabis together, and also protecting the sources, whoever got it, because a lot of that early stuff was brought to us by older brothers of my peers, people that had already been in it, and had the good connections and stuff. So it just developed a greater like for it, like anything. The longer you experience something and the more you enjoy it, the more loyal you are to it as far as anything, experience
definitely.
Or substance,
So when did it go from being just cool and not having to worry to, oh shit, we better watch our P's and Q's because,
Well,
and who was president back then, and what laws changed, and what was the whole vibe in that area?
Right. I'm thinking that the war on drugs with Reagan in '80.
Yeah.
That really, it changed everything. It changed everything, and that's when that interaction with law enforcement and stuff happened for me within those first 3 years of the '80s, and it just seemed like somebody had given them an edict or something to say, oh, don't worry about hurting anybody, don't worry about the liability, you just go out there and punish them and tell them, we don't want this at all, we're not going to tolerate it, and just, stop now, or we're going to hurt you, we're going to, threaten your future by locking you up, or,
no doubt.
physically abuse you for doing it and stuff. So, yeah, there were rumblings of it, and it was just that in the 70s, coming down from the higher echelons of government that, they were going to have to do something about it. And I thought it was relative to the fact that from the very first time that I actually felt like I got high, so to speak, on cannabis, it was like the third time, I think, that I ingested it. The first two times, it really, the lights didn't go off,
Understood, yeah.
But
I hear that quite a bit, actually, so,
But then, after I'd been doing it for a while, then, like I say, during the middle of the 70s and stuff, I thought that it really freed my mind. That all the biases and the prejudices and the judgments about other people and concepts and things that I'd grown up with, just in the normal American neighborhood that I was in, in the American public and sentiment and how they were thinking back then, it just seemed like a lot of those things that weren't really positive, they were derogatory and especially harmful to a lot of people, the biases and stuff. It seemed like the cannabis sort of opened some windows of perception and some doors in my way of thinking to where it didn't feel good to feel negative towards somebody else. And also it seemed like it just really gave me more joy in my life. I felt happier, and just from consuming a flower. So also early, like 1969, I think it was, the summer after I'd come back from college, or that same summer I'd come back from college, a year after I started in the fall in '68, I had a neighbor that was like 7 years old, an old retired bachelor that lived next door to this rental that I was in for the first time. And he also had a bud that was like 73. Those two guys would get together, and they were getting high, and they had no idea, they were always in the house. But one day I'm out in the backyard, and they lean over the fence and want to know if I know where they can get some hay.
Hey, huh?
Because they'd been born around the turn of the century.
Okay.
So after, getting to know them and stuff, realized that they had lived through the 30s prior to the 37 Cannabis Tax Act, that changed everything as far as the legality of it and stuff. And so at first I thought they were narcs because I had no concept of anybody that age. I had a grandfather that age, and Grandpa Carl was an alcoholic, man, but he wasn't like
about the weed.
He never said anything about that, So anyway, they told me about they were alive when you could buy a gunny sack of Mexican marijuana in downtown Portland for 25 cents.
25 cents for a gunny sack. And what year was that?
Oh, in the 30s, prior to.
30s.
Yeah, right, prior to.
Okay, so people were smoking weed in Portland, Oregon in the 30s.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, there's that one sack, empty sack, that is from that era in World Thirst Pub.
Okay.
Up on the wall, and that was from that time period when that's how they transported it and stuff, was because just like hemp, a lot of the farmers down south, once that tax act came into place, that was not just consumable or smokable cannabis, but it was for hemp as well. And all the old tobacco farmers down there in the south they had grown hemp the whole time too, because it was traded on the world market like it still is.
Yes.
Before that
seeds
37
and fiber and
right, yeah. So they were real disappointed. The farmers were, to know that they weren't supposed. And then that subsequently is what spawned the Kansas ditchweed. I don't know if you've ever heard of that phenomenon. We had one of our peers in about 69 or 70. His mother lived in Kansas, and he would go back usually once a year to visit her. And one year, after being a hippie out here on the West Coast and being around cannabis for so long, he just decided, not knowing, that there's all this weed growing back there around Mom's house.
Yeah.
He rented a U-Haul truck and filled it up.
Really?
With green ditchweed, and drove it all the way back out here to the West Coast. And man, that stuff was starting to just mold up and rot and stuff, because he picked it green and threw it in the truck. Drove it in the heat all summer back. And couldn't sell any of it, naturally, because there was no high. It was no high weed. It was hemp. But that was seeds that had just continued to spawn along the farming fields where they had
the ditchweed.
The ditchweed from all the farmers that had grown hemp for decades.
Can we go back to your neighbors, and can you tell us your relationship with your neighbors that smoked weed? Was there...
Oh, the old fellows.
Let's dig a little bit into that. That's a good one.
No, it was wonderful, because the one immediate neighbor then, and I won't use names, they're both deceased. They're both deceased. But his wife had passed away years before, so he was a bachelor. But when you went into his house, it was like going into my grandparents' house.
A museum.
Yeah, big overstuffed chairs and family photos and all these knickknacks and curios and stuff around and stuff. It was really a trip, But it was like going to my grandparents' house, only these people were hip. So much different, just the words they used and the way they looked at life and stuff was so genuine and so well-rounded and full. They really, they lived a full life, And then his bud, it was older, but in early 70s, he lived out in Selwood, in this big old 3-story house. Wow. Beautiful, one of the older homes over there. His wife was the cook at the grade school for all the kids' meals right across the street from their house.
Oh, wow.
But when you went into his house, into the foyer, the first thing you saw was a framed picture of the aircraft carrier that he'd been on, because he had been in the Navy, So he was going through all this stuff and being out on a ship and all that stuff. And I think that was probably the 30s, probably when he wasn't, maybe as late as the 40s, but, he would have been 30 or 40 if he was born at the turn of last century.
Yeah.
He would have been 30 or 40, and that's old to be in the military.
Service,
unless you're a lifer. And he wasn't. Anyway, you go in there and you see that, and it's just like I say, this is like Grandma's home. You know, everything about it is just clean and all overstuffed furniture and comfortable. Very comfortable. Well, then you walked up the stairs to the next level, and as you got to the landing up above, there was a stand-up freezer. That's where he kept his stashes.
Okay.
So before he even went into his all black light walls, black lights, quad stereo, 10 couches and chairs around the corner, in his studio, there was that freezer. Opened it up. Top layer was pot. Middle layer was hash. And the lower level was psychedelics.
Okay.
But I mean, this guy would take 2 and 3 hits of a psychedelic and party for 2 and 3 day weekends.
Really?
With young people. He'd go to the nightclubs and bring topless dancers home to just party with them for all hours of the night and stuff.
And Mom, she
was asleep downstairs. She was going to go cook for the kids tomorrow.
Don't worry.
No worries. They've been doing this for so many years. It wasn't like he was a threat to their marriage.
So he had black lights and stuff, and this is like 60s, 70s?
69 was the first time, and at the very latest, it would have been 70 when I first went to his house.
Oh, okay.
And through my neighbor, and then by.
So they've been doing this regularly for quite some time.
Oh yeah. This was their life. This was their life, and